Hey, everybody, welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture. And we are back in the saddle once again for another season. And I have with me returning guest and comic creator, Laurie Calcaterra, I want to
You
say.
said it right.
I was a little
Yeah.
nervous. I should have asked before, but I was a little nervous. So welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Yes, this is my third time. So wearing like a badge or a sticker or something for the show.
I don't have any toys yet or anything like that. But five times you get a jacket. You get a jacket five
Yes.
times, guys. But anyway, I do want to get into why you're here, all that fun stuff, because you got issue 3 of Path of the Pale Rider that is out. You know, you're pretty well along your way, pretty early on. I know this
Yep.
issue is somewhat pivotal because this is the issue we kind of find out how this all started, why it started, a little background into everything. But before we
Mhm.
get into that pivotal shift, I do want to catch everybody up on what is the basic premise of Path of the Pale Rider, because there are 2 issues before all this.
Right. So in this world, death has been broken. So your body can die, but your soul, your consciousness, it doesn't leave your body upon death. So you are in your body as you decay, and your skull is literally rotting in your head. So people, animals, insects, nothing can die correctly. We're all stuck here together, and it creates a lot of issues. People themselves are modeled after like dementia or brain disorder, where they can become forgetful or violent or detached. Um, it just creates a lot of issues uh, in the world with food, overpopulation, ethical issues, etc. So when we start the story in issue number 1, we're actually 10 years into that apocalypse, and things have devolved back to the Wild West. So our main character is a cowboy. He's kind of like the last guy still looking for the answer to the question, why do the dead no longer die? So issue 1, he's in the wild, get to see him make decisions, and the consequences to what seems to be small decisions have huge consequences in this world. Issue 2, he's in this town called Santa Claus, which makes me laugh. And the people there are not nice, and but he finds what he's looking for, and chaos ensues. So at the end of issue 2, we kind of bump into a time jump, right? I'm not going to spoil what actually happens because something actually happens, right? But issue 3, we are
Yeah.
now at the beginning where death is missing or broken, however you want to think of it, and we're right in the beginning, in the thick of it with
So
our character.
let's get into this, because obviously one of the things is that there's many ways how to tell a story. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes one of my favorite shows is a show called Bacchanal. And sometimes you tell the end first, and then you tell part of the beginning, and then you wind up telling the middle somewhere in there, and then you move around. It's a great
Mm-hmm.
show. It's a very, very well done show, and it's probably one of the best animes that's ever been created. But this raises the question where obviously wherever you start your story, and then you go back into it and making it flow organically, because that's a tricky thing, because
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to make this come off as a one shot,
Right.
and you don't and doing one shots on Kickstarter are complicated. So what was this like, even figuring out the way in? And then obviously the other side of it is getting out back into the remainder, because that's the trick,
Yeah.
without losing a beat. And it's a very complicated thing to do.
Uh,
And you don't know how it's going to actually be received or anything of that nature either.
mm-hmm.
But what is that like? Because it is tricky, because this is pivotal in
Right.
information, and you kind of need to know some of this stuff, or at the very least, I think it provides at least some depth into this world.
Oh, it's huge what happens because I've talked about it in the last couple campaigns, like what's coming or like what happened in the past to give this new future that Jude St. Clair is walking around in. But for people to be able to go and experience it for themselves and see what actually sets him down his path. Because yes, I've talked about the events, the like social events, the crumble of society. You'll see all of that, but you're also going to see what happens directly to Jude because of these things. And that's what really is important, because yes, the world is terrible, and it's kind of the antagonist of the entire plot, right? It's not just one person that he's battling. He doesn't have a nemesis. It's the whole freaking world and how it's set up as his nemesis. But there's two real big events that happened to him that send him on this path. And you'll get to see the first one in issue 3 and then the other one in issue 4. And it's devastating. So sorry, Jude. But
Yeah,
then
let's
from
talk
there
about.
we get back into the story, and like you'll see, like we'll get back to where we left off, because I kind of left everybody on a cliffhanger in 2. If you've read it, like he was looking for somebody, he finds the guy, and he's about to ask him questions, and we don't get to see the answers to those questions because I dump you into the time jump.
Yeah, so let's actually talk about that too, because obviously this is where this is really interesting to some degree as well, where this is a deviation from what I think is, I guess, the linear storyline, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Where this is the background, it's almost like a flashback, and
Yes.
then we're going to get back into the linear storyline, and it's going to continue, but this provides a lot of base and a lot of information. And it's one thing when DC does it or The Walking Dead does it and it's coming out monthly. But when you're doing every 3 months or every 4 months, that's tricky because that could go one way or the other. So what is this like? Because, you're committed to the story, but it also is a little nerve-wracking, I would imagine.
No, I don't think so. The way the story plays out and the way that when issue 3 ends and then in issue 4 ends, it flows very nicely. You're gonna, as soon as you finish issue 3, you're gonna be blowing up my emails asking me for 4. And same thing when 4 ends, it's like, okay, give me 5, because you need to know what happens. I love writing cliffhangers, and that's what I excel at. So you'll see. You'll just have to wait and see. But the endings are killer. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and then even to go further into this, and obviously talking about what happens, and there's some preview pages and everything, and obviously we kind of start seeing that somebody dies in an ambulance. I don't think that's spoiling anything, and then they come back.
No, that's in the preview pages. Yep.
They come back, and you could tell that the ambulance guy was trying to save him. He was shocked and exhausted, and all of a sudden, to his, I guess, surprise, the guy who's trying to save is back.
Right.
And it's very interesting because what is that like to write? Because you now have a weird thing going on where this is the first time, and I don't know if this was the first time that the death cycle was being broken, but it's really the first time we're witnessing it, or
Correct.
however it happened. But what is that like? Because now you have the start of people starting to see this, not exactly knowing what it is, not necessarily knowing that it's the death cycle. Maybe it was just a freak thing. Maybe somebody was dead for 3 minutes and somehow their body kicked back up. And now you are starting to get a very interesting thing where we're starting to see what this looks like,
right,
and how people are reacting to it, and they're emotional, and even the beginning of, I guess, this unobtainable threat, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, it's a hot mess in the beginning because nobody really knows what to do. And I kind of play off. I love that you mentioned that scene because I love horror and I love zombie movies. And of course, I'm going to write that scene in there where we've all seen that where like, oh, the person's dead. And like you stop looking at them, they're not paying attention. And then the camera just sees the person like slowly sit up. And you're like, oh, you should run, right? But it's different in this situation because there's actually text that goes along with that. So the guy sits up and he starts talking. So even though it scares the crap out of Jude, who's not expecting that, it's very clearly he is thinking. You know what I mean? So it's not like a zombie response. It's a hey, what I don't know what to do here. I'm confused. It's you will see the confusion, you will see the chaos. We will explain everything. I think issue 3 actually covers about 5 years after the fall, or excuse me, after like D-Day, like when death disappears. So you're going to get quite a bit of information just thrown at you in this issue. So, yeah.
Yeah, you bring up a really cool point with this too, where if you're covering 5 years, I mean, we're getting a real snapshot of the beginning of this, people adjusting to it, people reacting to it, and people really figuring out, hey, what is this? How is it affecting me? The emotional component to it. And that also raises a fascinating thing where obviously issue 1 and 2, the world is set and it has clearly fallen into disarray, and there are certain parameters that are set. But then if
Mhm.
you go 10 years earlier and it's, I guess, normal, you know, that also gets to reset the parameters to some degree in your story, but you can't do certain things, meaning
Right.
that, so what
Uh,
is that like? Because that's kind of also, I think, sometimes tricky where it's like, I know that I can't do X, but I know this would look good. And then figuring out, and also you can't present certain things as well without ruining certain other things. And
True.
so,
I talked about this recently where we're talking about time and how to tell stories and the pros and cons of telling a story not in a row, right? So the con is that the world is already set and you already know your character is safe, right? So any kind of risk that I show in these stories until we get back to where we left off, people know, oh, he's going to be fine, right? But not everybody else is.
this is super interesting because the way I view it, and obviously I know that Jude is going to be fine on a
Right?
physical level, so when we go down stories like this, I'll give an example. Walking Dead. If you know that Rick Grimes, if you just never heard of The Walking Dead, but you know he's on the cover of issue 30, and you see him getting shot in issue 1, you know he's gonna be fine.
Exactly.
And but you don't know what's going to happen when he wakes up. And
Right.
so what is this like? Because dealing with the emotional fallout, dealing with somebody potentially losing their mind and not decaying wise, but being a wreck. And
Yeah.
so that's what's so interesting, is that
Yep.
that's what's on the table, because you can't, if he gets shot in the past, I know he's going to make it. Maybe
Right.
his shoulder's going to hurt for a while, but if his girlfriend dies, he loses his dog, he loses his parents, what is that going to affect him? And then obviously you get to see how that leads to his
Exactly.
decisions potentially in issues 1 and 2, and why something might be relevant that was passed over. So it's
Exactly.
very, very interesting in that regard.
Exactly. You hit it right on the nose. You're going to see what Jude emotionally is going to be going through. You're going to see new characters that may survive, may not. You have no idea what's going to happen to these people because they're obviously not in the story in 1 and 2. So where did they go? So they're at risk, right? Let's be honest. And then how much does Jude have to endure, or what pushes him out the door to start looking for the answer? Because that's where we find him in 1 and 2. He is determined to find what caused this. So, what did that to him? Like, what made him so determined to do that? So, you're going to see all of the fall. You're going to see that with Jude. Obviously, Jude is safe, but nobody else is. So, or maybe there's a twist. Maybe Jude has been undead this entire time. Dun dun dun. He
So
could be undead.
it's going to be fascinating, and obviously, I don't want to ruin too much for
No.
anybody who wants to read this, enjoy it, all that stuff. But you also mentioned something about time, and one of the things about comics, at least the way I read, is that the reader has a lot of control in a
Yes.
comic. In a movie, I don't have as much control. When I go watch a movie, if I'm watching a 2-hour movie, the director says if this movie took place over 80 years, we're getting 80 years in 2 hours,
Hours.
and it's going to feel like 2 hours, maybe 3 or 4 at the most. And in a book, there's a lot more control of time, but in a comic, I can control sometimes how fast a conversation had, how fast travel can go. If somebody's going on a journey and it's not specified, I could say the journey took an hour or it could took 3 hours. And the fact that you're going over and setting it in a 5-year time period, what is that like? Because that definitely takes control away from me a little bit as far as
Well,
a reader. And it's interesting when people do that, because I just think it's always interesting when you take more of a novel approach sometimes, or a movie approach, and interject it into comics.
yeah, and that is our goal, to use the visuals to convey the passage of time. So you're going to get a lot of information, but Marco's going to be doing things. We have talked about different methods. We haven't decided which one he's going to do yet, but like either involving like television or calendars turning. We're going to represent time going forward via some kind of vehicle, and him and I are still working on that. But that's basically, you're going to be able to tell that the time is moving forward based on visual cues, along with what's happening in the story and then the words as well. So all of that together will convey the passage of time and how quickly it goes. Long moments can have big panels. Small moments, quick moments have a lot of small panels. They go very quickly. So just depending on what's going on in the story, we will work together to convey how quickly or slowly time is going. But
No, I just find it fascinating because I like to control how I read my comics. And when I am not allowed to control it, it's just interesting because it's such a different approach to a comic book, in my opinion.
well,
And,
we come
that's
from script writing. I come from script writing, right? That's my background. So when I wrote this, it was a full length movie. It's a screenplay, and it makes more sense if you view it that way. Because if you think of a movie starting with a cowboy riding through, desolate areas, apocalypse, infrastructure is dilapidated. We've seen this in movies. We've seen those westerns. We've seen the beginning where it's like they're giving you some information, but you got to know. You know what I mean? Like, why is there a zombie sticking out? Who is this person on a horse? And there's an undead bear. Like, oh my God, there's zombie bears in this world. And that's really all the information you're getting in issue number 1 and how terrible of a place it is. You get issue 2 and you start learning about people and alive people and their prejudices and how dangerous it could be with living populations as well as in the wild. So you get that information, but really when you get this flashback, and it's an extended flashback, I think we're going to spend 4 issues in the past. It's kind of like, in the movie where it's like going back to the beginning and showing you all that backdrop. So I think when you look at it in the context of a movie, that it makes a lot more sense how these are broken up.
Yeah, and even to dive into that, because obviously, if somebody then you're gonna obviously do a trade paperback at some point or
Yes.
an omnibus, and reading the omnibus is going to be very different than reading it in single issues. And so, what is that like too? Because I think this is something that sometimes creators don't think about. Is that cool? You have your first release, which is the floppy, or even if you're releasing, a graphic novel of 90 or 100 pages, that's the first release. But then if you gather it into a bigger chunk, obviously it has a different reading experience. And so what is this like for you? Because if somebody's reading issue 3 and they read issues 1 and 2, they're getting this flashback in chunks. And then, they're going to have to wait 4, 5, 6 months to get the second half and then potentially the third half or the third part or the fourth part. And obviously it makes for a different reading experience. And so what is that like? Because you have to think about both ends of it, I feel.
Unfortunately, our production rate is our production rate right now based off of financial needs and artist availability. So yeah, we would love to turn out a monthly if money was no issue. Of course, we would all choose to do that. The good news is about that, we also brought in a colorist for this issue. So issues 1 and 2 is just myself and Marco DeFillo, the interior artist. He's been getting busier as well. So we brought in a colorist. Now there's 3 of us to kind of help with that speed. So that's key. But we have talked about, the series itself is it's a trilogy. Okay. The first kind of season 1, if we're talking like Netflix terms, right? Season 1 is 13 issues. So you're going to get 3 trade paperbacks. You're going to get 1 through 4 in the first one, and then you're going to get 3 and then another 3. And is that right? Or are we doing 4 trade paperbacks? I can count. 4, 3, 3, 3. There we go. That's right, math. Do math. So I think when we look at it as a whole and it makes sense where the trade paperbacks end. So like issues 1, 2, 3, and 4 is kind of Jude's like beginning and then stepping off points. 5, 6, and 7 leads to something. 8, 9, and 10 is its own thing. And I'm off against 11, 12. Yeah, 11, 12, 13 is again another thing. So it's like Even though it's broken up into 13 issues, where we chunk them out into the trade paperbacks will make perfect sense. And it's like you'll get your own arc within that trade paperback and then put them all together in an omnibus. And it's like you get the whole thing. That's exciting. Can't wait for that.
The reason why I asked this is that one of the biggest pet peeves I have is, creators I feel, are good at creating, but they're not good at figuring out how to monetize and where to monetize. And you should be monetizing in every area you potentially can. Obviously, your floppy should do what your floppy should do. And then you have to realize that you're going to produce a trade paperback. And then if you're going to cons, trade paperbacks sometimes sell better there, or then you go on Amazon, potentially be in bookstores, things like that. And I think a lot of people don't understand that you don't have to make money on your first issue with your book, or you don't have to make money in any of the floppies to do well in comics. If your business plan is to be more in trade paperbacks and have bulk orders and try to get into real retail. And I think this is where it's so interesting, where sometimes you have to write something or create something up front, and then you worry about monetizing it later. Or the monetization comes into the idea that, hey, we know we're going to make the real money on the trade paperback.
Right.
Because now we presented at a con, and now I'm taken more seriously.
Right. Yeah.
So
there's always a long-term plan in place. But I can't put the cart before the horse. Like, I would love to make trade paperback, but it's like I only have 2 that are printed. And in fact, I lost my whole shipment, so it's like I really have 1 that's printed right now.
It's the idea that while you're producing your first 4 or 5 or 6 issues, you need to just stay above water. Is really what it looks like. It's a good analogy, right? So the goal is not to go belly up, but to stay above water. And then you say, cool, now I can produce a trade paperback, which becomes another product, but I don't have to create new content beyond maybe a new cover and actually print the book. And that's where it gets so interesting in comics, is that the cost goes down significantly for the trade paperback because the work's already done.
Because like 53% of the cost for issue number 3 is art. More than half. So 100%. Like once we get to trade paperback, all that's been paid for, all that work has been done. So now it's just the print charge and like you said, the business side of it, like how do you monetize, where you take it, who's putting it on their shelves, or do you have it on your website, stuff like that, who's distributing.
And also, and feel free to disagree, I think once you have a trade paperback out on your table, or you reach a certain number of issues, your view at a con changes. And I think people, because unfortunately, and you've seen it, I've seen it, where somebody puts out a really cool issue of a comic, right? And then you're like, man, this book's awesome, this concept's awesome, and then they disappear. Or they put out an issue 1 and 2, you're like, man, where's issue 3? And well, life happens, or they said this is really hard, it's frustrating, I'm tired, I have better things to do, I'm not making any money doing this, other things are going on, and therefore, you don't get that, next issue or the issue after that. But when somebody has 4 issues, 6 issues, or a trade paperback, it's like, cool, there's a lot of material here. And then they're saying, hey, we're working on issue 5. Right. And now I think it's an easier sell at a con, or an easier sell at a comic shop, or wherever else you're selling your book, because it's like, cool, I can get 4 issues now, and you're working on issue 5. And I think it changes the dynamic.
Oh, 100%. And I've seen this at cons, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard for someone like myself where I'm like, hey, I got 1 book. How do you make it look like a full table when you got 1 book? It's like, yeah, I got 4 covers. You know what I mean? It's like compared to the other tables, I have just like a rack, a whole stack, where it's like we have 4 issues, we have all these variant covers, we have prints, we have 11 by 17s, we have merch. And it's like, I have keychains, you know what I mean? But as a new person, you can't spend all your money on all of these things. You have to basically pay your artist, pay your print job, fulfill your Kickstarter, whatever crowdfunding you're doing. And then whatever, books you have left, that's what you're selling. So it takes time. It takes time to get there. But, and I think you've also hit something else on the head. because I'm at that point, like issue number 3. Myself and a few other creators are right around the same point, and we're like, man, this is hard. Like, you really work extremely hard, to get out there, to get noticed, to have people follow, to have people invest in you. And it can be draining. It can be tiring. You spend time away from your family, all of those things. So at some point, people look at this and it's like, it's too much, and they're done.
There's a saying, and I'm not going to say who. I mean, actually, I'll say who it is. It's not a big deal. It's well known. It's pretty big in media. I mean, Steven Crowder and the Daily Wire, and what he said, and we're all adults in the room. We're all adults. What he was saying is that in media, people get burned out.
Yep.
Because it's exhausting to do, a podcast every day. It's exhausting to, be in news or be a journalist or be in media. It's exhausting. And writing a comic and producing a comic, especially on an indie level, is really difficult. And I haven't done it yet, but I know how hard it is. And so I think it's a very, very, very complicated thing. And I think I was speaking to somebody, and she's a wrestler, she's a model. And what she was saying in the middle of COVID is everybody spend a lot of time with themselves. And what they figured out is that they said, what do I want to do in my life? Who am I as a person? What am I as a person? What do I really care about? What do I not care about? And I think a lot of people have also come to that conclusion and saying, do I want to continue to do this? And I think the last 2-3 years in our society, there's been a lot of, I guess, figuring out who we are as people. And, it's very interesting. And I think it's actually heavily reflected in comics right now. And not just comics, but just collectively. But obviously, we're talking about comics here. So, it's a perfect, discussion point. But I think it's so interesting. I think it's so interesting because burnout is real. I mean, it really is.
You know what, though? I have this philosophy that you just embrace the suck. It's not permanent. It's not. If you put in the work, if you put in your time, if you make smart decisions, you're going to make mistakes. We all do. But if you learn from your mistakes, if you find a mentor, you pick other people's brain and you talk to your community and you collaborate, the suck is temporary, right? So you just kind of have to enjoy the suck. You got to be in it. When you get through it, it's almost like, look what I did. Look what I, made it through when so many other people didn't, so just embrace the suck, put in your time, and hopefully, we all make it to the other side.
I have a very different philosophy. I think the suck remains the same. I just think that I think it's hard. What I do in my eBay store is hard, everybody. It sucks the way I do it every month, but I also figured out how to do a lot of fun stuff in it, and I get rewarded for it, but it sucks regardless. So I have a very different philosophy where I think the reward goes up, but I think the difficulty, I think the suck remains the same. I don't think this gets any easier. I think it gets harder.
At some point, the suck gets a little easier. And I think you also have to just approach it like, it's going to suck, but look, I'm going to decide to have fun. Like, I have fun. It's a challenge. Like, look what happened with my last campaign. The book has been done since January. The printer that my publisher used printed my books and then disappeared. We don't know where they are. We don't know if they're done. We don't know if they've been stapled. So we're dealing with that. And at this point, it's like, okay, do we start a new print job? I would have to reformat 3 books and then be at the back of the line, or do we continue harassing this guy until he gives us an answer? So that's difficult. But in the meantime, I'm like, you know what? I can't control that. That was outside of my control specifically. I'm not going to penalize my backers. We're going to figure that out. But let's continue with issue number 3. I know they're ready. I'm ready. So let's go. Let's have fun. Let's do the next short film. Let's, produce the next riddle. Let's talk of shenanigans on. Let's do shows. Let's connect the two of us and talk about fun stuff, because dwelling on whatever issue is going on, that's not fun. Whatever. We're going to decide to have fun. We're going to decide to enjoy what we're doing, because why else would you do it if you just, are not?
Oh, no. For me, it's very easy, in which that obviously I'm selling products. and the suck remains the same, but I get rewarded because I'm dealing with the suck. And
Yeah.
so I take the different position where at some point I'm going to be writing a comic. I'm writing a comic right now. I'm going to be crowdfunding it, and it's going to be difficult. It's going to suck. There's going to be pain, but I also understand that I'm going to get rewarded for it. So I don't sugarcoat it, and I'm going to have a good time doing it. I'm excited to do it. It's a fun topic, and there's going to be elements that are great. But I think that as you go from issue 1 to issue 2 to issue 3, it gets harder because now there's more stakes, especially if you have a continuing series, because now I feel like everybody's going to want more out of you
Yeah.
and want to elevate, and they're going to expect growth. And so now the pressure's onward, but now I have to deliver. And so it gets harder. And I think what winds up happening ultimately, because this is what happened with this show, is that I've been doing it for almost 10 years now, is that every episode is hard. I'm just accustomed to it. The level of difficulty hasn't gone up, and I don't feel it as much as the first one, but it's still the same level. And
Yeah.
it's just that I'm accustomed to it. And that's where I think it gets interesting. But that's just the way I view it. But again, I just want to be real with everybody. That's all I'm saying there is that you get accustomed to it. I think writing comics, I don't think it gets easier. I don't. I think people, really get, accustomed saying this is hard to tell a story and do it. And they say, cool, I'm accustomed to knowing that what I'm doing is difficult.
I agree. I agree. But isn't that still the suck getting easier? Don't you think? Because you are more experienced at you become more experienced at the suck. I don't take that the wrong way, people. That is not to be taken out of context.
Hey, you could take it however you want to take it, everybody. That is completely up to you. I do not judge. I am a very, very, very understanding and accepting person here. So that's all I'm going to say on that point. You could take it however you want. I mean, I have so many inappropriate jokes to use.
I know, it was like that. When I came out of my mouth, I was just like, well, we said that.
So many things I could say.
Like, I'm sure that'll be clipped later in a short. Like, did you get better at the suck? Did you? Good job.
Oh, I found my new T-shirt idea right there. So, oh, I have so many things. You can put it right next to a vacuum cleaner. Oh, it's just great. It's just great. You could put it next. You could put it in like space and a black hole. Oh, I have so many things. I have so many ideas here. Oh,
embrace the suck. Someone trying to hug the vacuum. Embrace the suck.
So many things, so little time. But I do want to talk about. You did mention the riddle stuff, having fun with comics. Obviously, I like to have fun in my life. I enjoy my businesses. I mean, I buy and sell collectible comics and rare collectible comics on eBay. And if you're not having fun doing that and getting to pick up really cool books that people want to buy from you, and then they're like, dude, you packed this thing perfectly. I've been looking for this for years. It's very rewarding. It's a good time, and I get to hold on to some of these books for maybe 3-4 months. So what is this like though? Because you do the movie stuff, you do the miniature trailers, you do the fake commercials, the news reports, some other interesting things. You do riddles. I think, did you do a text message thing yet, or was that a website?
Nope. We did well, there's a group you can find. If you solve the first riddle, you find a group. You could be a member of the group. If you do the second riddle, there's actually a character interaction. You get something in the mail from a character.
No. I asked because obviously this is where I'm going with this for those who are interested, is that at this point, I feel on Kickstarter, there's a lot of good products out there. And then the competition has gone from 0 to 60 in a snap of a finger. Where your book, I could find 10 books that are all of equivalent with ease right now. Nothing against your book. It's the idea that you have to make it stand out.
Right, exactly.
Because there's so much good stuff out there. Not everything's going to fund on Kickstarter. I have a friend who has a great book. It's just not doing well right now. And I don't think it's the book. I just think it wasn't exact. I think he picked the wrong images to put up, is why his book didn't fund. And I'm hoping he reshoots in 2 weeks with what I suggested, and I think he'll actually fund really quickly. But the idea is that there's a lot of good stuff out there,
Yes.
and you have to make it different. You have to stand out. And so, doing the fake news reports, doing the character interactions, doing the riddles, potentially doing some other stuff. Also, the way you set up it, the way you make it an experience
Yes.
versus making it I'm buying a comic. And I
Yes.
think that's the biggest issue. Or you need to have such a cool universal concept
Right.
that everybody's like, man, this is a great concept. And how come nobody's ever done anything like it?
I think we do both. Like the concept of death being broken and getting zombies without zombies, but it's like almost worse because you're trapped in your own decaying body. That's horrific to me. So we have a great concept. The story is such a genre bending thing where it's a western, it's apocalypse, it's sci-fi, it's horror, it's all of those things together, and it works so seamlessly. Is great. But like you said, like looking at the images or maybe not understanding what's going on it's hard to get people to buy in. But then when you read about all the other stuff that we do, and that all comes free, it's not like there's a stretch goal to unlock the short films. We do a short film every issue, and you can be in it if you want. I always put out what we're doing. Like issue 3 short film is a horror film. It's a psychological horror, and if you want to be in it, I have a shot list for you. You can very easily do all of them, or you could do part of them. And if you send them to me, you get a guaranteed spot in the film. So you can become a part of the world, and it's just kind of like cool to like show your friends, like, look, Laurie killed me in number 3, or look at number 2, like we ran someone over with a car, or I said crazy things and went and robbed a bank. So we do real fun stuff. I slap makeup on people and fake scars and fake blood, and we go to town. And like I got the drone out for this last one. The drone was flying down the street, and all the neighbors were looking at me like I'm crazy. We have fun. But that's just a great way to get people involved and invested in the world. If you get to be a part of it, you want to come along for the ride, and you want to see what you look like in the short film when it's edited. When I film you for this much, but look at the whole thing when we put it together, and it's something amazing because we did it all together. So it's just fun. It's just fun. Plus, it enriches the world. Jude is on a specific path through the world, and there's a lot of things that happen that he doesn't necessarily see. So I can't tell them in the comic unless Jude is there. So what a great way to experience some of the other things that are going on by giving people additional media. We've talked about this before, and so the things I've planned: phone numbers to call, websites to hack, secret YouTube videos. What else? I'm working on. I just was talking to another writer to co-write like a radio series. It's podcast, so audio only. It's going to be about 6 episodes, and it's going to be like a buddy cop show about these guys called the Collectors that go pick up the undead and take them to retirement, undead retirement community. So it's going to be funny, but very dark because of the things that they're doing that they just they don't care. It's just another Tuesday. But we got a lot of stuff in the works, and I love when people participate in that stuff because it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, so let's actually talk about this because it's interesting when, obviously you can only do so much in a comic. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, I mean, you could do a lot of stuff in a comic. I shouldn't say you can only do so much. You could pretty much do anything you want in a comic.
If there's no sound, right?
That is true. That is true. Also special effects are a bit difficult. If you really want to do some motion, it's not the easiest thing, and things that are like that. But there's a lot of stuff that can be done in a comic, and any story can be told. But obviously, there's this little thing that I don't know if you heard about it called money. That determines how far you can go.
Yep.
There's so many jokes I can make about that too. But anyway,
You're gonna have a whole line of T-shirts about innuendo T-shirts. There's your new business. Sorry.
I may or may not have started that already, but anyway. But anyway. Well, one of the things is that obviously to produce a comic, it's not as expensive as to producing a full-length movie, a television
Right.
show, an animated show. There's a few other genres, but doing a radio show or a podcast isn't as expensive as doing a comic. And also, it requires a different set of skills. It also
Right.
requires, to produce an audio podcast might require three people, especially if there's two main lead actors, essentially.
And
And,
that's I
maybe on the
what I was
writing, and
gonna
then
be.
maybe you need a producer at
Yeah.
best, or an editor. But obviously, that's not going to run the same cost as a podcast, but it works in conjunction. And so, what is that like? Because, if you were to do that buddy cop gathering, the undead in retirement, and do that in a comic, it's going to take a lot of time. It could be very costly. And also, then you're juggling, a lot of different projects all at once, and you're running yourself massively thin. Versus
Yeah.
if you're doing it in just audio, you're eliminating 50% of the problems that occur if you were doing it in comics minimum, if that makes any sense.
It does, 100%. Because it's not a visual medium. So, what we're relying on is people using their imagination instead of actually laying out exactly what's going on. The other thing I like with the podcast idea is that the control of time. And it's so important when we're talking about comedy because there's the buildup and then the delivery. And that's what, comedy is all timing and delivery. So I have tapped Lee Newman to work with me on this, and he's an extremely funny guy. And he writes a comic book series called Sisson that is so funny. Like, it just makes me laugh. So he's going to be co-writing it with me, where it's like I'm going to be laying out what happens, but he's going to be doing the dialogue. And we actually have two voice actors that are interested. So that'll be fun to have them do that, and then I can kind of put in like sound effects and edit it myself. I'll probably need some help with that too. I might get some of my friends involved who have audio editing in their background, because I'm not too fluid with that. I need some work, but at least I can get it like edited to where the dialogue makes sense and the sound effects, and then have someone like master it. You know what I mean? Yeah, but that'll be fun. I'm really looking forward to that because we haven't hit that medium yet. So it'll just be something to kind of branch out a little bit further.
Yeah, no. I think it's important. And I think that understanding what you're trying to do, understanding even how to add things in that don't necessarily cost a huge amount of money,
Right.
is helpful to branding. It's helpful to a lot of different things. And I think that's something that people forget sometimes with, comics, is that if you're just doing 6 issues of a podcast and you're going to release it, whether it's on YouTube or on, SoundCloud or podcast format or however you're going to do it, you still own it too, which is the other thing too that people need to realize, is that ownership of something, even if it doesn't take off immediately, is very, very advantageous. And, when you own your media, it's a game changer in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's interesting. You got a lot of stuff going on, and obviously we could be here all
Yeah.
night talking about it.
I
All
mean,
night.
honestly, seriously, we could talk about all the crazy things that I'm working on for hours. In fact, I was on a show earlier today, and he was like, "We usually do an intro, and we usually do this." He's like, "We're going to skip all of that and just talk about all the things that you're doing." He's like, "Because you have so much going on." And like, we didn't even get through all of it. We were at like 58 minutes. He's like, "Well, we got to start wrapping up." And I was like, "Oh, we didn't even watch any of the videos." He's like, "Well, you have to come back." I was like, "Oh, well, we got stuff going on, so it's good. We got lots of stuff."
Yeah. And what is that like? Because obviously you got, the movie stuff that we mentioned, you're going to be adding in this radio stuff, you got all that riddle stuff. And that stuff in a lot of ways is constant, meaning that it's always there and it's almost a passive advertisement. And I
Mm-hmm.
think this is something that a lot of creators don't understand. I think, a lot of people are having a lot of discussions about interviews. I'm finding it harder to get creators to want to do interviews. And I think they're missing the point where it's a passive advertisement for you for life.
Yeah,
If
you
it's
should be
on
like, "Hey, did you
YouTube,
see this?"
oh, what would you say?
And like, all I have to do is reshare and be like, "Hey, this was a really great interview I did with Andrew." You know what I mean? Did you see this one? Because if you haven't, we tackle a lot of really good topics. Watch it, and you can replay that as many times as you want.
I even think that obviously I've had interviews that started off having 10 views and they've gotten 9,000 plays on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, 9,000 plays is a hell of a lot. Obviously, I wish it was a million. But all of a sudden, if every year it does 400 or 500 plays, that person is getting 500 views from one interview every single year. And I
Yeah.
think it's very interesting. And obviously, once you have this radio show, you have all these movie trailers, you don't know how YouTube's algorithm is going to work on a particular day. And so all of a sudden, I think that's what a lot of people are missing here too, is that, let's say it never generates any money, but it drives traffic to what you're doing. It's
100% it does. Yeah. But I mean, that's part of it is like, I want people to enjoy the videos and be like, what the hell did I just watch right now? And I mean, like, oh, it's from a comic book. Oh, let me see what it's about. And we do funny things too. Like my last, the short film for number 2, we had a blooper reel. The blooper reel got more views than the first one. I'm like, I guess it's cool. I don't know. It's like, how do you watch the blooper reel and not understand the context of what it was blooping? Is that a thing? Is that a verb?
I mean, I'll be really honest. I used to do shorts, and I'm actually loading up the stack of it. And my YouTube shorts and my TikToks do more views than my interviews do. And
Yeah.
I'm looking it up 60 seconds, and seems like, cool. How did this person get this role? That's all I want to know. And all of a sudden, it does 600 plays within a day. And so it's super interesting what media works, but it drives traffic to my channel. And the only reason why I stopped doing it is I'm actually gearing up so that I have like 90 of them. So this way I have every day one of them coming out, which it just takes time to build that content up. But I think it's so interesting because, and then it's from a bigger interview. So now it redirects back to that. And it's just such an interesting thing. I find it so fascinating. I do. And it's just because I'm implementing it, and that's why it's fascinating. But I do want to talk about rewards.
Yeah.
And then we're going to talk about Resident Evil too, because we have to.
Let's do it.
That Netflix thing was great. It was so good. It was so good, guys.
What?
It was so good.
You liked the last Resident Evil from Netflix?
Oh, it was so good, guys. It was so good.
What are you talking about right now, Andrew? Who are you? Back up.
It was great for all the right reasons and all the wrong ones.
Okay, if you could admit what the things that happened that were wrong with it, then we can agree. But there's some really terrible writing in there, man.
I thought the ending monster that blew up was the best part of it. I thought alluding to Ada Wong was good.
Really?
I thought that it took place in, I think, South Africa was brilliant. I thought the whole thing was great. I thought that Umbrella was a profitable shareholding company was great. Everything good. I like how they referenced James Marcus in there. It was epic, guys. It was definitely a good move by Netflix, guys. Absolutely.
What are you talking about right now? Everybody hated that shit.
It was one of Netflix's finest moves. Is all I'm gonna put it at.
Totally cancel that. Like, they're not getting another season. And with the way that they wrote the 2 main characters, people hated them. I hated them. They made all the you did this on purpose. You just wanted to hear me rant, didn't you? Because I hate
No. See, I disagree. I think the sister who got infected was actually written well. I think the sister who messed up everything she touched was written horrible.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think they gave us enough of the one that got infected. We saw that she got infected. We saw that she made some mistakes, and then all of a sudden she's an adult. Like, give us the rest of her story. They really didn't. They made them kind of 2D, and then Jade was just so unlikable. And like you said, everything she touched, everybody got killed. Like, she would give recommendations that were just horrible. And I'm just like, why would anybody do this? Where she's like, I'm going to test the serum on this undead person with my kid in the room. What could go wrong? And I'm just like, oh my fucking Lord. Excuse my language. I'm sorry, but that was bad. It was bad. And then she's telling her kid, like, get off the ship. Make sure you escape. Don't listen to anybody else. She tells her 9-year-old little girl to go get a gun from under a bed, put it in a backpack, and go into the world full of zombies with a goddamn zombie alligator. Giant zombie alligator.
I thought it was
She's
great,
like,
guys.
let's get off the boat. And do what? Go where? There's nowhere to go. She's an idiot. What is wrong with them? Why would they do that?
I thought it was great. I thought it was one of Netflix's finest moves. And then
You're just sticking to your guns. That's good. I respect you for sticking to your guns. Now, there were some really good moments in there. Like the guy that was chasing her, the bigger guy, when he had his like John Wick moment, that was great. Like they took out people with
I'm
chainsaws and he got to
sorry.
shoot
I'm
everybody.
sorry.
That was a good fight. I enjoyed that, right? When they blew
I
people up, like that was
enjoy.
a pretty bloody episode. Um, I enjoyed that one.
I really liked. I liked the whole concept of like that cult in
Yes.
there. Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought that was great. I thought that was brilliant in that entire thing. But I also like the fact that they referenced like Albert Wesker getting crushed by a boulder. I thought that was pretty funny. I thought that was pretty
I'm
funny.
gonna disappear. Like people's major problem with Wesker, like, ooh, that was rough. When he showed up looking like Blade, like B Blade, we were like, what is this? Like
I
this is
loved
so
it. I
dumb.
don't know. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was
We
the
were
funniest
laughing, but
thing.
I don't think it was supposed to be funny. That's the problem. I think we were supposed to take it serious, and I was just like, oh, this totally missed the mark. God rest that man's soul. Lance Riddick, we love you. Sorry you had to be B Blade.
Oh,
But
he
in
was
that
good. He was
Olive
good.
Garden was hilarious.
Oh, that was a brilliant scene in so many ways. So many ways.
Bring me
Just
one
so
red six.
But anyway, now that we went through the comedy hour, I still think it was a good move by Netflix. I economically, I don't necessarily know if it was a good show. It was good
Well,
though for Netflix overall though, collectively.
yeah, and I think when it's controversial, people will watch it just because it's controversial. And I think that when it comes to Resident Evil, we kind of have this hope that they're gonna get it right next time, but they never do.
Also, this raises a whole different question. Where at this point, I think they're out of ideas because I think that Resident Evil it needs a refresh
It
as
does.
a project where you need to do something that is in the Resident Evil vein, but you need to refresh it. And I mean, I think it's a net positive because they tried something and it didn't work.
Yeah,
And,
they
and
tried.
people give it shit, but you have to realize that they tried something and it didn't work. And
Right.
I would rather they try something and fail than not try it at all. Where they're trying to create a modern era, more 2020, 2030 Resident Evil revival of Umbrella and shift it and then shoot it out again in a unique way.
Why can't we give something new a chance as opposed to rebooting all these titles again and again and again? Like we got Interview with the Vampire this year. You know what I mean? Why?
I could tell you why. I know exactly why.
Because it makes money. That's why. Because there's already an audience, right? And people are familiar with the characters, so they just bring them back. But they don't enrich the story. We're getting the same story. It's like how many different versions of Spider-Man do we need?
Me and a friend of mine spoke about this with that '90s show. That '90s
Okay.
show was average. It
Yeah.
was above average. It was above average. Technically, I'll say it. I don't think it was phenomenal. I don't think it was fantastic. I don't think it was the greatest thing Netflix has ever produced. Cobra Kai was amazing.
Now that was good, but that was different. That enriched the story. We got to see that kind of relationship from the other
I
side. We never got to hear
Yeah,
Johnny talk about what was going on.
I am willing to bet that '90s show made more money than Cobra Kai. I'm willing to put real money
No,
on that, and I'll explain why.
that makes me sad.
Because what'd you say?
I don't like that. I just like the fact that it made more money than Cobra Kai.
I don't know if it did. I don't know if it did, but I'm willing to put real money on it. And the reason why I'm willing to put real money on it is because it has nostalgia. It also automatically, that '70s show, for those who don't know, is streaming on Peacock right now. So if
Yeah.
you watch it and you want to see the follow up, you now need to have Peacock and Netflix if you like that jam. So it brought people to Netflix.
Hmm.
Before, Cobra Kai was on Netflix, but there wasn't something before. It wasn't like the Karate Kid was on another network and only on that other network.
Um, Cobra Kai started on YouTube, Red.
It started on YouTube and then
Yeah.
Netflix
And then
picked
it
up
came to
season 3.
Netflix. Yeah. which was smart. But
so the point is that, and then at some point, the reason why that 90 show will make more money than Cobra Kai is that the rights to that 70 show will expire, and
right,
Netflix will pick it up for $500,000, if not more. No,
yeah,
half a billion. My mistake, $500 million, if not more. And there you go. And then now you have 11 seasons, 12 seasons, 15 seasons, however much they want to add on to that every single year until Netflix says we're good. And now you have a natural progression in there. And that's the reason why this is interesting. So this is why we don't try new things, because you have natural progression into things. And this is about making money. It's kind of like,
but there's so much potential out there. Like, look what happened with Umbrella Academy, right? Umbrella Academy was a comic book. Season 1, when they made it, was phenomenal, but they had to take a chance on it because no one's heard of Umbrella Academy. Maybe a small crowd, but when it got to Netflix, it got huge, right? So why not give other comics a chance that they could be that something new? Look at friggin' Cocaine Bear. We haven't done that before, right? It's not Jaws, it's Cocaine Bear. So it's the same, it's still safe because it's still an animal running rampant on a loosely based real story, right? It's not real. But again, it made tons of money. But again, not as much money as Jaws. Those are two.
I have a friend. He does a comic. It's a manga called Shotgun Samurai.
Okay.
Tell me, don't you want to see that on Netflix?
Yes.
As like a crazy B movie.
Yes.
And I said to him, and I said, dude, you're in the wrong genre. Write your first volume and then stop doing it and write that thing and pitch it to Netflix. Pitch it. Hell, pitch it to a small indie production company. And you're going to have a cult classic within seconds, and you're going to make more money than anybody else.
And then Netflix will redo it.
They won't even redo it. They'll just buy your B movie and you'll be happily smiling and you'll go around the country like Kevin Smith does with Clerks, showing it. You'll have way more fun and you'll make way more money. Why would you go to Netflix with that?
Well, you have to realize I looked at pitching to Netflix with my story and opted not to. It's done.
But that's the thing, though. I think everybody has the wrong idea. I think everybody wants to go onto Broadway first, right? So
can you imagine Path of the Pale Rider as a musical?
It's a saying. It's a saying. It'd be great. It'd be great. Look, if Bono
I'm dead.
I'm sorry, everybody. If Bono can do Spider-Man, I don't see why somebody else can't do something on Broadway either. But let me explain the terms. So before we all go a little apeshit here, the term is that going to Broadway means that, or going off Broadway means that hey, you're in a smaller theater before you bring your whole thing onto Broadway and you refine the product, the process, and what you're doing, and that you grow big. And
I thought you literally meant to take it to Broadway, and I was like,
no, that's not what I meant. I would absolutely support you if you did, though. Absolutely, all the way.
Can you imagine the bear costume? It's like the Lion King.
But this is what I mean is that
I'm gonna start writing it tomorrow.
I think it'd be pretty funny. You know who you should hire to do the music? Sting.
Who?
Sting.
You want Sting to do the music?
This way nobody can understand the lyrics, but it'll sound good.
I was thinking Tool.
You can have Sting and Shaggy.
Wait, it's Western. We gotta do Western music. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I think Sting and Shaggy would be great doing the score. Hey, it wasn't me. It wasn't me, everybody. It wasn't me. Tell me in the bathroom, hey, it wasn't me.
That's our new theme song. It wasn't me.
but getting back to the point,
Sorry.
I think that's the whole thing, though, is that everybody wants to like pitch to Netflix because it's fun, it's sexy, but I think, maybe you want to go to like an indie like B production company and have fun with it and then see what happens. And I think that's the whole thing, because I think a lot of people want an instant home run versus a base hit. And
Yeah.
I think that that's the biggest problem. Like I'm not. I mean, look, with the comic I'm writing, what I want to do, I want to sell to Netflix, but
Mhm.
that's not the only avenue. And the only reason I want to sell to Netflix is that it will increase what I could sell the comic for at a con.
Mhm.
I'm not interested in selling it to Netflix to have a TV show. I'm interested in selling it to Netflix to increase the brand and what I could charge for a variant. Because I realize that the real money for me in the long term and in the business is that Netflix will brand it for me and will increase the value because I'm going to stock and vault my comics. I got no problem. And I get a lot of shit for this. I get a lot of shit for this theory. But if I believe in what I'm going to preach to, and if I get a Netflix deal, you're damn right I'm going to vault a bunch of stuff, let it hit for 2-3 seasons, and then release that and make a nice big cash exit because I control the supply and demand of said book.
Right.
And that's the point. Or you go off Broadway and you do the same thing, and then you get to that level, and then you make a nice big
Yeah.
cash exit.
Well, everybody thinks of Netflix because it's a household name. We don't really know small indie production, nor do we see a lot of people, where's the avenue to see the small indie production stuff?
Actually, it's not that hard. A lot of it's just legitly like. I mean, there's so many free apps now. There's so much. There's so many places. Roku is a good example of that.
Hmm. Okay.
Minus
Right.
26% after 2 weeks ago, but that's not the point. Hey, they had 26% of their free cash flow in SVB. They deserve to be made fun of a little bit, guys. But I did call First Republic Bank, so I just want to let everybody know that I did call it on Monday. So I was off by $2. I called it saying it was being a $14 stock. It was a $12 stock. People thought I was crazy, and somebody listened to me and they made a small fortune. So just saying. So somebody owes me a beer.
Yeah. In the minimum.
Even though I sort of gave up drinking. So there you go.
Did you really?
for probably till May. Till May.
Yeah, I was gonna say you have other stuff going on where you can't drink.
Oh, it's not a secret what's going on. Everybody knows, so it's all right. But anyway, we should probably get to your rewards.
Oh yeah, let's talk about them.
Yeah. So you got a bunch of digital issues. I think you got digital issue 1, 2, 3. You got a combo. If you're missing a digital issue, you could pick it all up. That's out there, and you got cover A, which I think is right here.
Yes, and of course this is going to be color. It's it's going to be really cool in color. I cannot wait. Just because it's like Jude sitting on top of an ambulance. There's a riot freaking going on and explosions. This. I don't know if you saw the cover to the Choose Your Own Adventure book, where Marco colored that, and it just completely changed how you see the cover. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does when this is done. But yep, he's like, Jude is checked out. He is done. He does not care. There's a riot, and he's just not helping. He's smoking a cigarette, and his burger bag says Big James Burgers. Yep.
There you go. And then speaking of Big James.
Yeah, that's our Big James cover. That's by Everett Watkins. And he's done a cover for every issue so far. So he did last campaign, he did the Christmas tree with the zombie parts. And then issue 1, he did the Jude St. Clair against the sunset with the smoking gun. Does fabulous work. I love the fact that he pushes himself a lot. He writes a young adult series called Boog, Boog, The Outcast. And it's about this little elfin forest creature that gets he messes up and he gets ejected out of his tribe in issue 1, right? And he's trying to do something to impress the tribe to get his way back in, right? Very young adult, no swearing, no blood, guts, and gore. He battles giant insects. And then I tap him for my project, and he's always like, Laurie? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, I'm grossing myself out. And I'm like, thank you. I'm like, if you're grossed out, it's the right level of gore. So perfect.
And then this is, one of the other covers.
Yes, this is Angelo Aquino's cover, and he is an illustrator. Actually, he's a high school teacher. He teaches illustration in an art class. Beautiful graphic design and vector art, does amazing things. So really kind of elicits the polarized views that you're going to see. So on the wall, you have no pulse, no rights. And then the protester, that dead outside, still human inside. So there's your two, sides that are going to be clashing in this issue.
So you got
But
that, and then
I gotta say, with that image, he can change a lot of the colors, right? So when he showed it to me, he showed me the protester, yeah, in a few different color rain slickers, and I was like, it has to be yellow. It has to be yellow. And I couldn't figure out why I so adamantly wanted it in yellow with the red sign. It's because of it. Georgie was in front of the sewer with a red balloon. That's what that looks like to me. Right?
I have no comment.
No comment. But that's why I was like, it needs to be yellow. And it pops that way against that blue, that washed out blue. So it just looks really awesome.
Yeah, I have no comment. And then you have, I think David Sanchez did a cover, which isn't done yet or released yet. And then William Russell did a cover, which also isn't,
They're
released
not
yet.
finalized yet. They're in the works. I have seen the in progress, and they're both really good. David Sanchez, his cover is actually another main character that hasn't been introduced yet. So it's kind of one of those spoilers with no context. So you'll get to see this person, but I'm not going to tell you who they are or why they're important, but they're coming. And then William Russell, his cover is a spicy cover. But I wanted to bring up the fact of things that were taboo in the old world are not so taboo anymore. So there's a shift in thinking, whether it's good or bad, that's up for you to decide.
Fair enough. And then you got some other stuff too. You got my boy Chris Brown's Path of the Pale Sauce.
Yeah, I'm gonna be making my own batch, but with his recipe, and he sent me the labels today. So I gotta take this background off so you can see me. Hold on. I love this background because of the piano. It makes me look like so posh. This is my kid's bedroom. That's where I have my office. So, but yeah, like he did this batch of Path of the Pale Sauce with Big James and Jude St. Clair. It's fabulous. I love this sauce. It has a little bit of a bite because there's habanero in it, but it's so good. One of my buddies was like, this would be great in Bloody Mary, and he's not wrong. So I have some hot sauce. They're samples. They're free samples along with your donation. So I'm not selling hot sauce because I'm not FDA approved. It's a sample. Don't come for me.
And then obviously you got shirts. I think you got a metal cover of the first issue. You got all the covers. I think you got a super secret reward. I think there is an original page still up for grabs, I believe, or that might not be, or some original art I think is still up for grabs.
We did 5 pieces of original artwork you can commission from Marco DeFillo himself. That's the only backer level that, like, some of those funds are going directly to Marco to pay for his art. Absolutely. You know what I mean? And then the rest of that comes to the project, but you can tell him what you want commissioned. So you can either do a character that you're fond of, or you can do a character from Path of the Pale Rider. You can really just communicate what you want directly. We'll set it up so you can directly talk to him, and we'll send it to you. So it's really cool.
And then you do a big old thing with Pop Funkos, and I think you did, Big James Pop Funko, obviously custom Pop Funkos.
Yes.
And so you got that as a reward too. And so there's a lot of stuff.
2 left of those. There was 5. The sculptor, that Big James Funko Pop, is so complicated. He's 2 pieces. His whole head comes off because he's giant. So we put a limit on those, only 5, just so to make sure that he could get them done in the time frame that I'm promising. So 3 are gone. There's 2 left. So if you like Funko Pops or you like Undead Bears and you just want Big James on your shelf, that one's an amazing Funko Pop. Don't miss it.
Yeah, and then obviously, I mean, just you got a lot of stuff going on and a lot of different things and a lot of different price points coming into all this. And so it's very interesting. And it's something that I am a big fan of, is getting into a campaign for $15 all the way up getting into $500.
Yeah, the $500 one is gone. That's the new Funko Pop and like everything, right? Every single cover, the hot sauce, the collectible sticker, the t-shirt, and you get all the things, right? I just don't throw in a kitchen sink because it's too costly to ship you. Um, but that one gets everything. So that one is gone. And then we had another one that was only one where there is going to be a scene in this issue where Big James makes an appearance and he takes somebody out. So one person grabbed that where they actually get drawn into the comic and they get to be killed by Big James. That was a
Fun.
good one. I'm so glad somebody grabbed it. I was like, I kind of want it to be me, but I'll open it up for other people. So enjoy.
A lot of fun, a lot of fun. And then
Yeah.
obviously, a bunch of other stuff. And if there's something that is not there for you, I'm sure Laurie will happily get it for you if possible. If you
Yeah,
want some, if you want like 6 of the hot sauces, I'm sure that can be arranged. I'm
correct.
sure it can be arranged. Or if you want some weird version of something and you're looking for it, obviously it can be arranged. I know you could also add on, I think, some back covers from I think
Yep.
even the first 2 issues. I think cover A's are still around. So
Cover
that's
A's
something.
are around for issue 1. I'm still willing to order some variant covers for issue 2 if people are interested in those. Just because of the situation where my books are in they're just hiatus, so I have to redo the print order. So if people want extra or they want a variant from 2, I can still make that happen. So
And so obviously if you want something, if it's obtainable, I'm sure
I'll do it.
Larry will get it for you. But I do want to back out all this, and I do want to talk about Kickstarter. As we were speaking about earlier, Kickstarter is weird lately,
I don't know
where
what's going on.
people who were doing well are still doing well. People who are doing really well are not doing well. People who were not doing well are doing well, and it is a complicated entity. There's a lot of reasons potentially why,
Yeah.
and the platform is weird. And there's a lot of discussion going on, both on when you should launch. If you have outstanding projects, should you launch? How should you run your campaign? And there's a lot of different philosophies. And I'm very curious where you feel all of this is going, because it seems to me, and it's just my opinion, that prior to this year in 2022 and 2021, there was more of everybody coming in and, hey, let's do it. And now there's more strategy, I feel, in Kickstarter this year.
Yeah. I think that there's always been strategy, but I think it's been more of um lack of experience. Kind of, you know what I
I'll,
mean? Like the
I'll put
longer
it
you
my
do
way.
it,
Yeah, I'll put it my way. I feel that in 2021 and 2022, it's like, fuck it, let's go. We'll figure it out while we're doing it. And
yeah.
I feel right now, it's like, let's actually plan week 1, week 2, week 3. And that's how it feels. I'm not saying that's how it
Yeah.
was, but that's how it feels as a consumer. And that's what I'm witnessing. And I know it's very anecdotal, but it feels like it is way more strategic now than it was 6 months ago. Whether that's
Um
true or not, that's
I
how it
I
feels.
don't necessarily agree or disagree. I think it depends on the Kickstarters that you're viewing. I think that some people have gone that way where it's like we're just going to throw it up there and see what sticks, and then the next time they're like, okay, we actually are going to plan ahead. Other people, it's just like no, they can't plan. It's not in their skill set. So it just depends where everybody's at. That's what I love about Kickstarter is you'll get people who are very experienced, and you get people that have no idea what they're doing. But they can still everybody can show up in the same place, and Kickstarter will at some point help you promote. Either it's in the beginning or at the end. Once you hit 100%, and the algorithm pushes you to the front. At least it's a place where people can search for you and find you, as opposed to like not knowing where to even start. So I it's all over the place, but you're right. Like my campaign really took off this time, and it was not like this last time. There's a few things that we did differently. Like one, the time of the year is different, and you and I had talked about this. How spring seems to be a really great time to run a campaign. Um, my last campaign was in end of September and October, and that was hard because we're coming up to Christmas, right? And people are not Christmas shopping on Kickstarter, and they're watching their pennies. They're at the end of the year. There's a lot of hiring freezes. And it was rough last year. You know what I mean? For everybody. So my Kickstarter did what it needed to do, but it didn't really grow from the first one to the second one. We just leave it at that. But this one, I'm at like 84% after not even like 24 hours, which is amazing to me. And I'm so grateful that it's there, because I really want to see it, grow and take off, and we can do cool things when we have a little bit of extra money, like go back and color issue 1, you know?
I think it's very interesting. I think that there's a lot of stuff going on. I also think that we're now getting, into tax season and out of tax season. I think that's a helpful thing because
Yeah.
I think that people got burned out in December economically. And I actually
Yes.
think that we had a slow recovery that really started to hit in February. First thing, and I think it took all of January for people to refill their, I guess, coffers. I think is the word I'm
Yeah.
looking for. And I also think that we're now starting, and people realize they're going to get a refund, and so they feel more comfortable to spend. And I think people might also feel a little less economic pressure right now, first thing
Right.
in January and February. And then that's just the sense I got. I mean, I am now starting to make bigger sales on eBay. And I understand eBay is not the same as Kickstarter, but I get the sense that people who are eyeing product collectively in comics and collectibles are now way more comfortable to buy. And that's just the sense I get in the business world.
Yeah.
And I think come April 18th and April 19th and April 20th, I have a feeling that it's going to be, those sales are going to increase. I really do, because I think people are going to have an extra 1,000, 1,500 in their bank account that they didn't have before.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I've been fortunate. I've had a lot of return backers, and they all came out like on day 1. So we will still definitely see growth. We're gonna, be funded anytime now, but I think it'll be not as such a steep climb that we had the first day. So because I know those big backers that come in, and most of them are in, So, but there's always, I mean, it's not just the big backers. I want everybody to come read the story. So whether you're spending $5 on the PDF, or you're spending, $100 for the metal cover, you're still reading the story. And ultimately, that's what I want. I want you to be invested in my characters. I want you to feel what they're going through. The horror, the drama, the emotional. Oh, it's such a great ride. And detach from your life for a little bit. Read my story, where it's way worse. And then go back to your life like, oh, thank God, like there isn't undead bears, right? Life isn't so bad. But that's my goal as a storyteller, is to get you to forget for a little bit and come to my world where I can walk you around. And that's what's great about the Choose Your Own Adventure book, is because you actually get to do that and make your own decisions. And I kill you a lot. But you
Well,
get to play it again and again. That's the fun part.
well, when my book comes out, I'm just going to say it. I don't really care if you read the story. I just want you to back my book and get awesome covers that go up in value. That's what I want, so that when you resell it, you don't have to feel guilty. You'll just make some money, and you can move on to the next one. Which is we're more than happy to do that for you and my books, because I care about your wallet. I don't really care if you read my story. My story will be great. You'll have a good time, but that's why I'm going to send everybody a digital copy. In which there will not be a digital copy that you can buy. If you want a digital copy, I will just give it to you for free, because the whole point of my campaign when I launch it is that I want you to actually buy a physical copy. And I'm breaking the mold, guys. I'm breaking the mold the only way I know how to. So there you
there
go.
are backers who want to support you, unless you plan on shipping worldwide. Like, unfortunately, I can't ship worldwide. I'm not big enough to do that because I'm fulfilling myself. So I do digital, especially for those people who want. And I have international backers that come, and they get the PDF every time. So someday when I'm big enough and this backer has been with me for 7 issues, guess what? I'm going to send them all 7 issues when I can afford to do so.
No.
Um,
My
yeah,
goal is to make my backers wealthy in the long run. So that's my goal.
yeah,
And again, if somebody just wants the book, I'm not going to charge somebody for a PDF. I think it's ridiculous. In which I refuse to charge somebody for a PDF. And again, I refuse. So I will just give to you for free. I think it's a different, better business model, because again, my business model is not the same. I have a very different philosophy, and we're gonna test it. And I got no problem. I did it once already, guys, and I got no problem doing it another 14 times
I got
until I
no
get it
problem.
right. I have been rewarded heavily because I have tested theories and I have bet correctly a lot. And I bet big, and I got rewarded big for it. And it's why I do what I do. And I think it's very important. And look, it could be a great idea, it could be a bad idea, but we're going to find out when I launch. So that's the whole point. But yes, that's me. But again, I don't care if you read my story. I just want you to have a valuable cover. That's
How
how I.
we're different, this guy and me. I just want you to read my story.
I got no problem being honest. I got no problem being honest.
Hey, and that's cool. You're allowed to be however you want to be. Is that a thing? Is that like from Futurama? I'm gonna be whatever I want. I'll do whatever I want to be. So backwards. But you're allowed to do that. You want to tackle it a certain way? Absolutely. Do it, you know?
Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. And again. I fail all the time, and I've learned one valuable lesson: land on your back, so you're always looking up.
Or land on your feet. Just get back up. Just that's the key. Is you're
land
gonna
on
fall
your
down.
back.
You're gonna make mistakes. Learn from it. Get back up.
There's two things, everybody. If you're gonna fall, land on your back, so you're looking up. And also, if you're gonna fall, choose to fall when it's not raining or wet outside. Falling on a sunny day is a hell of a lot better than falling on a rainy day.
This is also true. Being moist, I hate that word. This is a great show for clips, by the way. We got lots of innuendo. Don't be moist when you fall down.
Oh
I
my
just got
God.
lots of t-shirts for you, Andrew. Just lots.
There's so many things I could say to that too. There's so many things, and I am
Welcome to the
choosing.
show. Have a good night.
I am choosing not to, because I realize that I could get very, 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 very filthy very, very quickly.
Yeah.
I could get
Yeah.
Bob Saget filthy is how I can go.
Ooh, Bob Saget is a level of filth. He really is.
Some down and dirty. Oh boy. A bit of Dirty Dancing all over again.
No!
I can't even finish the joke. Oh, it's terrible. Oh, it's terrible. There's so many jokes. The end of that joke is
Don't finish that, please.
no, I don't think you were ready for it.
No, that's why I was like, I don't know what's coming, but I probably don't want to hear this.
Well, I'm gonna leave it at that.
Who will think of the children?
But anyway,
right.
I am gonna give you a chance to self-promote. So where can people find you, bother you, hit you up, disturb you, give you good punchlines to that joke?
I'm going to be selling t-shirts on Andrew's eBay all week. Make sure you tip your waiter. Laurie Calcaterra, Path of the Pale Rider. Here it is. You can find me on Facebook. You can join my group. I have a page. I just put stuff on there. I don't really interact with the page. The group is the most fun, because that's where we have all the shenanigans, and that's usually my baby that gets all the updates first. I have an Instagram. It's at Path of the Pale Rider with an underscore between all the words. Same handle for the TikTok. Twitter, it's at Path Pale Rider. So just 3 words, Path Pale Rider on Twitter. That's a fun place. I love the Twitter community. I just like reading and retweeting and commenting. I will post there as well, but not as much as the Facebook stuff. I have a website. It's just www.pathofthepalerider.com. I don't know if you can see a pattern here. It's all the same. We have a good time. Come and join us. I do have a podcast or a live stream show every Tuesday morning called the Tuesday Morning Brew. It's on the Comic Related Madness Network. Myself and 44 other shows, and we're indie comic creators talking to other indie comic creators. My show is a little bit of everything. So I'll interview people, we'll do panels. I have all sorts of guests come on, actors, writers, artists, publisher teams, and anybody. So if you have something that you want to talk about, you can come on my show. I would love to have you. Andrew's always welcome on my show, but he won't show up.
That's because I'm at work.
No, that's true. Good
I
point.
actually
You
work
are
a little bit.
excused, sir. But yeah, please come to the Kickstarter. Walk around, click on all the cool stuff. You can see a picture in my stretch goals of my face photoshopped over Danny Trejo's with a bunch of machetes. That's one of my stretch goals where we're going to smash and slice and dice. It'll be fun. I got all sorts of merch and things planned. The short film is not done yet, but it's in process. There was a few people that were late getting me some footage, so it is what it is. We'll get it done, but it's going to be a psychological horror, which will be great. I'm excited. Let's do it.
Well. That's everything that you got, and then I'm gonna just say what I gotta say. Obviously, you need to support indie comics. You need to support Kickstarters. When somebody has a Kickstarter, you do need to support it because it does make a huge difference, and backing does matter. And telling people that you backed it also is helpful because algorithms are not what they used to be, and it's very, very important in that regard. So I appreciate everybody who does that. And it's super, super important. And it goes a long way as well as following people on social media. That makes a huge difference as well. And as far as I'm concerned about me, obviously I got a lot of stuff going on. I am Pop Anime Comics on Twitter. I'm rarely on Twitter right now. I'm just taking a break. Pop Anime Comics on Facebook, as well as Instagram, as well as YouTube. And I'm always doing something. I'm doing anywhere from 2 to 6 interviews a week and a bunch of other stuff. And there's going to be a bunch of shorts and a bunch of other stuff that are coming. So be on the lookout for that. And I got a lot of other stuff coming down the pike. So if you want to check out what I do, obviously my Redbubble t-shirt link is down there. And there's some shirts that are coming. No, none of the ones we mentioned here. I actually
Yes,
am.
he's gonna make those shirts until I bother. I will bother him until he does it.
I got a really cool Gundam shirt up there, so check that out. And yeah, that's everything I got. And my ad rates are up there too. So if you're interested in advertising on this show or advertising on my TikToks and my shorts and all that fun stuff, you can definitely check that out as well. And my email's up there as well. So more than happy. Or if you just want to say hi to me, absolutely, that's what social media is for. I like when people follow me and all that stuff. And my YouTube is Pop Anime Comics. So that's everything that I got. And I'm going to give you the final word.
Path of the Pale Rider people, come check us out on Kickstarter today.
And that is a wrap, everybody.